The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win Make Give podcast network.
Welcome to the 15-Point Plan. Chad Himes here, joined by the valiant Jillene Snell. Jillene, welcome to today's episode.
Hello, Chad, and everyone else here.
We are so excited for today because we learned something in preparation for today's episode.
So many things, actually.
Yeah, it's amazing. We go out there and we want to bring you the best information. So Jillene and I go and do our research. And boy, we're going to be a little surprised with this one. So Jillene, what are we calling this episode?
We're going to call it Caffeine and Alcohol, Enemies of Hydration, ?
So we are saying ?
We are, yes,
Okay.
That's the title. But really, we're going to explore whether or not caffeine and alcohol are enemies of hydration.
Okay, so Jillene, this is the first episode in the hydration deep dive. We've finished movement. We're moving into hydration. Give me a recap. Talk about what hydration means.
Sure. Well, we talked a lot about hydration in our episode, so go back and listen to that. But truly, when you look at the human body being comprised of 60 to 70% water, and nearly all of our major organ systems in the body depend on it, we need it. It's a big part of what we need in our diet. It moistens and protects tissues and organs. Chad, it helps prevent constipation, apparently.
Yes.
It assists in dissolving minerals and other nutrients, regulates body temperature. I know we're going to talk about that in our sweat episode.
Yep.
It carries nutrients and oxygen to our cells. I like this, knowing that water does this for exercise because I work out frequently, and I know you all do too, but water lubricates our joints and decreases the burden on both of our kidneys and liver by flushing out harmful toxins. So this is essential. Water is essential.
So what you're saying is water is life.
It's life.
Yeah, I mean, when 60 to 70% of your body is made up of water, and we know we lose those fluids through a day, we have to, of course, remember to keep hydrating. Okay, so Jillene, we've all heard the two biggest enemies of hydration are?
Caffeine and alcohol. And the first thing that we'll actually talk about is caffeine in the form of coffee because it's the primary drink that people will have in the morning. I know I go very quickly from waking up to drinking coffee.
I know I'm not allowed near coffee.
Yes, the stimulant for Chad, it doesn't have as many cons as it has pros. Is that correct?
Coffee for me has probably pros for me, yet it's got a lot of cons for everybody around me.
Fair.
Nobody needs me on that much caffeine.
And I think everyone would agree.
Oh, yeah.
That's listening.
Yeah. I tried coffee once and it took Nita hours to talk me down.
And Chad and I balance each other out really well because you wouldn't want to talk to me unless I had coffee.
That was my mom. My mom was the don't talk to her until she's had her first cup of coffee in the morning.
Well, let me share a little bit about where the coffee bean comes from because this is just sort of a bonus add-on to the episode.
Bonus add-on time. Dave,
right?
Insert some cool bonus add-on sound. All right, go,
Well,
Jillene.
I researched how they found the actual stimulant, caffeine, right? So there's this, and this comes from the National Coffee Association.
So smart coffee people.
Yes.
Okay.
Story time. An Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi first discovered the stimulant power of coffee around 800 AD because he found his goats dancing and frolicking in the fields after grazing on red berries from a coffee shrub. After seeing these effects on his goats, Kaldi also tried the coffee cherries and had a similar reaction. Well, apparently there was a monk who was observing all of this strange behavior, and he decided to take some of these berries. So, he went and picked them and took them back to his monastery for his brothers to try that night. And after consuming this fruit, this strange fruit, they became more alert and attentive during long hours of evening prayer. According to this legend, the monks came up with the idea of drying the fruits and boiling them into a beverage. And it's as if coffee cherries were the answer to the monks' prayers. And my own, and a few people on this episode that's listening, I'm sure. And having their ability to stay awake during these prayers. So
Okay, hang on, Jillene, because some people are listening to this episode and their children are listening to this episode. We are not telling you to go eat berries off strange bushes because you watch some animal eat them and dance around. Be very clear on that, folks.
Yes.
That's not what Jillene's telling you to do.
Kids and youth and pregnant women should do very little to no caffeine. Absolutely.
Nobody should just go randomly pick berries off a bush that they're not sure what they're actually eating just because they see the goats running around having fun.
It's a hilarious story about where coffee was discovered and the stimulant caffeine. So, so we're seeking this stimulant caffeine, right? And so there was an original study done. We're going to continue story time. In about 1928, a study was performed where these participants showed increased urination when drinking caffeine. And that was originally linked to being a diuretic.
Okay, so, and a diuretic is?
It's causing the body to lose water faster than it should.
Okay, there we go. Just so we throw scientific terms and we tell you what they mean.
Yep, and we'll continue using that word.
All right.
But since then, in many studies, especially even in the last 10 years, it's argued more simply that drinking a gallon of water would also increase urination, but it's not a sign of dehydration.
Good point.
Right? So just because you're actually
going
urinating
to pee
more
doesn't mean
you're dehydrated. So you don't necessarily want to take that as your only sign. So research doesn't fully support the fact that caffeine has a diuretic effect. Now, what they say, and this is Harvard's take on it, that if you have more than about, I think the average is like 4 or 5 cups of coffee in the research.
Oh, God.
It may increase short-term, it might have a short-term diuretic effect.
Okay.
But not necessarily lead to dehydration.
Okay, so we get a story all the way from goats all the way to research telling us that caffeine is not a diuretic, which is basically what it comes to, which is busting the myth of us all hearing that coffee is just dehydrating you.
Correct. And everything in moderation, right? So coffee in moderation. So they say that up to 2 cups of coffee a day can actually cause hydration versus dehydration. It's only excessive amounts of caffeine that can cause the short-term
Put it out there.
effect.
How many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
Can you hear it in my voice?
How many cups of coffee do you drink in a day?
I would say 2.
How many cups of coffee do you drink in a day?
Today, Chad, was 2. I had 1 at home and 1 with Olivia at a coffee shop this morning. And it was a 12 ounce.
Okay. So it's all in moderation. We'll come back to that. Jillene, the other side of the coin here, as we were talking at the beginning, was this myth is that caffeine is a diuretic. It's going to cause dehydration issues. And so is alcohol. Talk to us a little bit about alcohol, because everybody, as you say, probably 75% of the people listening drink caffeine. Yet I wonder what percentage of them drink alcohol, Jillene.
Right. So, Chad, this is straight from Harvard because we're using a lot of research in this episode.
So we might as well go to smart people like Harvard.
We might as well.
Yeah. And do you know how you know if somebody went to Harvard, Jillene?
How's that?
They'll tell you.
Joke of the day.
And
here's the thing is that you can find so many different websites that are going to give you a different answer than what we're saying on this episode today. And so I went to what I thought were the most reputable sites.
I could use the internet to prove anything.
Exactly.
Okay, but here's what we have found.
Yeah.
What is it with alcohol?
So Harvard's saying that alcohol can suppress anti-diuretic hormone, which is a fluid-regulating hormone that signals to the kidneys to reduce urination and reabsorb that water back into the body. And without it, the body flushes out water more easily. So if we are enjoying more than a couple of drinks within a short period of time, it will increase the risk of dehydration, especially if taken on an empty stomach. But that's really not the main side effect of alcohol. And I think when we think about drinking, and we all know it's not a healthy beverage to consume. Alcohol is simply not a healthy beverage to consume. But many of us think that the main side effect is dehydration. So we're just going to bust that myth today because it is not.
Okay.
Right? Yes, it causes dehydration, but the other side effects are a lot more severe, and dehydration is one of those side effects.
So for all you children listening out there, here are some of the side effects, Jillene.
We're going to have to launch an actual kids podcast, Chad, because this is definitely an adult episode.
Yes, but give me the top 2 or 3 side effects of alcohol, since dehydration is not really one of them, as everybody would believe. So what are the real side effects?
I'm just going to give a couple that most people don't think about.
Okay.
Or maybe don't even know. But alcohol shrinks the brain. Literally, they've done these MRIs where they showed different images of the brain over time after someone's drank alcohol, and it starts to change the cells. They become smaller and smaller, and you can see that in these images.
Great.
It's scary. And of course that limits our ability to learn and remember things. I mean, some of us already think we're born with a bad memory, and then you add your brain shrinking on top of that. It's not going to help.
Okay.
It really prevents your body from keeping a steady body temp regulation,
Okay.
which is incredibly important to the function of the body. And we'll talk about that a little bit more
Which
in the
is
sweat
probably
episode.
part of why there was the tie-in to the dehydration thought of alcohol, because hydration is one of those major things, is to regulate our temperature.
Right. And we need that to be able to sweat.
Yep.
Sweat regulates body temp. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And then, of course, it eats away into our good sleep, which is particularly the REM sleep.
Yes.
It prevents us from having control of our movements. It causes diarrhea and heartburn. But the biggest thing about alcohol is inflammation, because it creates inflammation in all areas of the body.
Okay.
And again, dehydration is not the number one side effect. It is inflammation in the body. And I gave you a bunch of examples of this.
Okay.
One of the things that surprised me actually is that one night of binge drinking can jumble the electrical signals that keep your heart's rhythm steady. And if you do it for a long period of time, you can actually make those changes permanent.
Uh-oh.
So this is all it's building a case, right? It's building a case to drink more water and less alcohol. So if you still want to include some alcohol in your diet, you enjoy that glass of wine or whatever it is,
Sure.
that handcrafted margarita. First of all, do try to just cut down on the alcohol intake in general. So if you average 3 drinks a week, try 2 or whatever it is. Doesn't mean you have to cut it out. No, probably not right now this summer.
Okay. Got it.
I think I had a glass of rosé last night actually with some friends.
While putting together this episode for us.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Some out of
What
town
else can we
friends.
do, Jillene, other than cutting down a drink? Because half our audience is yelling at you right now. So what else could they do instead?
Dave, just cut that out.
No, keep it going. What else could they do since they don't want to
just-
cut down a drink?
Yeah, make a mocktail. So I have a friend, Brinley, who doesn't drink, and for a great reason. And she hasn't drank for 10 years, but she has the bartender make her a beautiful, it tastes good, it looks good. Make a mocktail. Focus on drinks with lower alcohol content. So that could be a seltzer or a cider versus a margarita with hard alcohol.
Or a Canadian beer.
Or, okay.
Yeah, right. Canadian beer has got a lot of alcohol in there, folks. So just be careful, Americans going north of the border. Yes, they know how to drink up there.
Drink or eat electrolytes simultaneously, because you want to focus on what you're missing that you should be including in your diet that is causing the dehydration. So you can get electrolytes very easily from coconut water or cucumbers or watermelon or Noon tablets. There's all sorts of ways that you can do this, and you want to combine it while you're drinking.
Okay. So, Jillene, you came into this episode as you were doing a lot of the research for this one with the thought, but when we talked about it before you went to do the research, that coffee and alcohol were major sources of dehydration. That's what we believed even going into this, and a lot of people do. What you proved was?
It's false. They can dehydrate in excessive amounts. So that's what we want to make clear. But on a daily basis, Chad, if we were to wrap this up, it's what you're not consuming versus what you're consuming that causes dehydration.
Ooh. Say that again. I like that.
On a daily basis, it's what you're not consuming versus what you're consuming that causes dehydration.
All right. So give us a tip to wrap this one up.
A lot of people don't think of this or maybe even know of this, but if you want to hydrate quickly and get the right type of electrolytes, take some Himalayan pink salt and just sprinkle it into a glass of water. And that's going to be a little bit healthier than grabbing one of those sugary, hydration drinks that you can get.
And we're going to
Universal
talk
straw.
about that more as we have a whole episode coming to electrolytes, coming to your favorite health podcast up soon. And until we get to that one, we hope that this episode ups your energy and takes you to the next level.